Evolved Podcast, an open forum on personal growth and cultivating a positive mindset. I'm your host, Joe Fitzpatrick. Today on the show, we have Chase Tolleson. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yes, sir. Spot on.
Awesome. And Chase is a storywork coach. He's also a strength athlete. He is business partners with my friend David Robinson, who was a guest on season 1 of the podcast. And I know you and Dave recently finished a men's retreat. How did it go?
Oh, man, it was awesome. This was our second retreat. Our first one was in March in Arizona. We sold that one out, turned around, ran one a few months later, and we filled it again. And it was great. You know, we had 6 guys show up, dove in deep on their stories. And being in Colorado, we were able to cap it with a little more of a physical experience. So Saturday, we did a hike that started around 10:07, 10:08, and finished at like 12:01 up, right at the tree line. Got to jump in an alpine lake to seal it all in. So it was great.
Very cool. I jumped in my first alpine lake a couple summers ago in Idaho. I don't know where exactly it was, but it's relatively close to Sun Valley. My new in-laws, they live out there, and my wife and I, we were engaged at the time, but we're married now. We visited them at their new home by the resort, and his wife, Heather, took us to this beautiful glacier lake. It was pretty cold. I don't know exactly how cold it was, but it felt so good to just sit in there for like 30 minutes.
100%, man. I heard that the lake that we jumped in, like there was snow running into it still. There was snow below it. We ran into someone who had jumped into it a month prior, and in June, it had still had like 90% of it covered in ice.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah, it was all liquid when we got in, but it was really, really cold like a month ago.
Cool. So the guys that came on your retreat, were those any repeat customers from the previous retreat, or was it all new guys?
One was a repeat for one of our previous retreats. One of the guys, Dave and I facilitated at Captain Taylor Morgan's immersion. And one of the guys met us there, and he came from that immersion to ours. And then other than that, the other 4 previous clients of mine and Dave's, people from our network, current clients, and just guys that were ready to dive in.
Cool. So you call it an immersion and not a retreat. Can you explain that and like what you use as a reference for that?
Absolutely. You had Dave on, it's all about the words for us, and abracadabra with my word I create. And to retreat, like what are we running away from? And then what kind of sense does that give us when we get back to whatever we ran away from, of how excited we are to go back and integrate what we want?
Right.
So immersion, we get to immerse ourselves in the skills that we're learning, in the emotions that we're feeling, in our stories, so that we can fully see them and even start to step out of them and take control. Immersion is just it's one more layer of the wordplay to give ourselves a little bit more power.
Yeah. So what's your background with story work? How did you get involved with that?
I was running a gym. When I got out of the Navy in 2014, I opened up a gym, and slow burn from like your typical CrossFit gym, 2014 typical CrossFit gym, to more individualized programming, more personal training, more mindset stuff. And then 2020, we had Mark England on our podcast for the gym. And at this point, I mean, the Enlifted program, he had yet to really even be talking about this. He was still just out there talking about the words. And I've been following Mark since 2017 when he went on Barbell Shrugged, got him on our podcast. And at the end of the podcast, I asked him, hey, man, what's this Enlifted thing? He's like, let's you and I jump on a call after this show. And then next thing I know, I was in with Enlifted level 1, group 9. I was signed up for level 2, group 3, and then level 3, group 2, just back to back to back, banged it all out. And I dove in. I started helping people in the gym. And I went online from there. I started helping. I'm like, this is the skill set to truly affect change outside the gym walls too. So since like 2020, 2021, I've also been online. I shut down my gym at the end of 2021 and been doing solely coaching guys and some girls worldwide, and then running these retreats with Dave.
So I'm friends with Mark as well, and we've worked together on a couple of projects. Great guy. I would love to get him on the podcast, probably in season 3. And I'm familiar with Enlifted, but I don't really know a lot about it. So if you could just enlighten me on like the basis of the program and what each of the levels are about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Enlifted level 1 is the meat and potatoes. It's helping clients get unstuck, and it's also doing the work for ourselves when we're in there. At the end of the day, it comes down to words, stories, breath, squiggles, and sounds, as one of the Enlifted shirts says. Words and stories, squiggles, and sounds. And level 1 is super cool because we get to dive into the basics of the victim mentality, the whole definition of what the victim mentality is, the power of words, the power of story, and just play little language games. Flip but to and, flip, every to some, flip they to me, just flipping words around and getting control of what we're saying, what our thinking, what our clients are saying and thinking. And at the same time, diving into our own, what Enlifted calls Billy story, the inner bitch, as like I think Jocko calls it. That voice in your head that doubts you. And by the end of Enlifted level 1, most people are laughing at that voice. And if you laugh at the devil, he will run away. And Enlifted level 1 also gives you the skill sets to get your clients unstuck enough to laugh at that voice in their head, to believe in themselves. So Enlifted level 1, I was on graduation. I was like, yeah, sign me up for level 2. Level 2 is celebrating wins and goal setting is the meat and potatoes of level 2. Some presentation skills. And by and large, it is celebrating the wins. So cool. We've crushed the self-doubt. Now we're going to be celebrating wins. And then after we celebrate wins and we believe in our power, now we can set accurate goals, because a lot of people are setting goals too small. And the trick is to set a goal large enough that you must become someone else to achieve it. Because if you can set the goal as who you are, then, well, it gets kind of boring after a while. I've been there, done that. And then level 3 is just the cherry on top. They are reworking level 3 at this point. And it's, higher level goal setting, a little bit more deeper into the words, a little more like mentorship than tech. And I know that they are reworking it. So anybody listening, take that with a grain of salt. And then I've also been through Enlifted ancestors, because we get more than our hair color and our eye color from our parents. We get stories and beliefs.
Yeah.
And when we, the Enlifted ancestors course allows us to go through and take an accurate look, as accurate as possible, at our parents' stories. Going and asking them about like family history and secrets and crimes and stuff like that. And then we take the Enlifted method. The Enlifted 4-step method is the meat and potatoes of all of this. And we go through that. And, I'll toss it back to you, and I'm happy to run through the 4 steps, because what I'm talking about here, level 1, 2, 3, ancestors, it's part of, I use that process on top of everything I learned in wellness and fitness with my clients. So,
yeah, that's incredible. And I would love to hear what the 4 steps are. But before we do that, I just want to go back to level 1, where you were talking about your Billy voice, your victim mindset. What did that voice look like for you prior to starting that program?
On January 26, 2010, I had the rug pulled out from under my feet, or so I believed. I had spent over a year talking with the U.S. Navy. They were the 3rd branch I talked with, and the first to tell me that, hey, even though you have a misdemeanor possession arrest on your record, we'll let you get a spec war contract, go to BUDS, try and be a SEAL, but you got to go fix your eyes. And there's a year wait time to make sure that surgery takes, that LASIK is actually good. So it's on paper. I've been talking with the Navy for over a year. I go up to MEPS, Military Entry Processing Station, to process in. They go, sorry, new instruction was sent out 5 days ago. You can no longer get a SEAL contract. We won't give you a waiver anymore for that arrest. I mean, there's levels, there's layers to this story. I then sent I got in touch with my second cousin who had tried to dissuade me from becoming a SEAL. He had sent me the book Lone Survivor thinking it was going to repel me from it. It actually just pushed me further into it. And he at this point, he's family. So he's going to help me, even though he knows that he doesn't want to see me put in that meat grinder.
Right.
He's working at the Pentagon. He's retired Air Force. He's this senior civilian at Department of at Missile Defense at the time. And he hands my package to the Deputy Chief of Naval Personnel. And this admiral goes, sorry, don't believe him, so I can't help him. So I said to the people at MEPS, I said, all right, get me out of town as fast as possible. Now, fast in 2010 was like 2 to 3 months. They said, okay, you're an engine man and you leave in 9 days. I'm like, all right, cool. 9 days. I'm going to get out of town. I'm going to get to the ship. And then I'm going to put a request in to go to Bud's from there because that's this workaround. You spent like a year on the boat,
right.
Except for I got put on a ship of 84 men. It was a very small command, 224 feet of wood and fiberglass. It was a mine countermeasures ship. We were a rotational crew. We would train up in San Diego, and then we would fly to Bahrain and man a hull up there. And I was really good at what I did. I'm very mechanically inclined. I rebuilt a couple cars before I even left for the Navy. I had a Camaro when I was 16. That was the car I sold to pay for LASIK. And my executive officer, my commanding officer, they said, we're undermanned. You're too good at what you do. Even if you pass everything and Bud says they'll take you, we're going to turn it down. Like they gave me advance notice on that. So at this point, yeah. I mean, because Bud's, it's like a 70% attrition rate.
Right. Yeah. So, I'm familiar. I read David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me, and I know all about Bud's from him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, they're totally allowed to do that because it's their needs first before like you go and try and follow your pursuits. And for the same reason that they had changed the instruction, made it harder to get a SEAL contract too. They weren't actively trying to grow the SEALs anymore. Iraq was done. Afghanistan was winding down. They didn't have as much of a need for spec war people.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spent 4 years with a chip on my shoulder, growing disenfranchised with a broken leadership and advancement system, watching men that were in the Navy solely because they were a fully grown man who needed a babysitter, working circles around people who had been in there for 12 years when I'd been in for 3. And that all created, I created out of that situation a story in my head that doesn't matter what I do, how much I try, I'm going to end up where I'm going to end up. So fuck it. And that pervaded my existence, even in my gym. I got out, I was an entrepreneur. I thought that I was in control, and I was still just like kind of riding on autopilot, just winging it. And when I got into Enlifted level 1, that was my stuck story. And we worked that, we went through it, we went into layers deep of what stories were underneath there. And once I got into level 2, my win was the fact that I got in good enough shape, that I passed the psych eval, that I did all that. Because I went from a kid that couldn't run, I was just a meathead who lifted, to running 2 miles in 13 minutes, swimming 2,000 meters, and then running 2 miles in 13 minutes on the way home. So it's a great example of the level 1 tech and the level 2 tech can actually take what we thought was our biggest stuck and turn it into a win.
I've heard Dave talk about that, the stuck story. So, I mean, I guess it is what it sounds like, right? Based on what you told me, it's where you feel in your life you got stuck, and that prevents you from growing and developing as you move forward. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and there's levels to it, right? There's levels to stuck. There's like stuck, annoyed, hurt, and haunted. Some people have some haunted shit in there that they just leave in the back of their head.
Right.
that they
So
never truly adjust. Yeah. I mean, it could be from the past. I mean, a personal story for me that it was after once I had all this tech, so I was able to process it as it was happening. My 27-year-old brother died suddenly uh, when he was 27. When 27. When he was 27, November 27th, 2021. I was at my gym working out, and I got a call from my mom. He had spent the night there the night prior. My parents had an event. We had went home. My brother and my sister-in-law and my sister all spent the night. And I got a call at 11:48 a.m. Uh, Ian's not breathing. The paramedics have been here for 10 minutes. He's not responding to CPR. I said, "What the fuck?" And then my mom said, "Yeah, can you come to the house?" And I drove my 2007 4Runner like a Ferrari between my gym and my parents' house. I got there. Paramedics were working on him. They actually pronounced him dead at the house. And as they walked around the corner to my sister's old room to tell us that, they said, "Oh, we got a pulse." So then they took him to the hospital. He died twice more in the ER. His heart stopped twice more. They got him up to the critical care unit, got him stable. His brain had been without oxygen for so long that it swelled, and it was swelling up against his skull and down on his brainstem. And at 27 years old, my sister-in-law had to be the one, she was his wife, to make the call. Like the doctor said, like his whole body's shutting down. His kidneys are going, next is going to be his heart, and it's going to be literally just the machine pumping him along. And she had to be the one to make the call. And we all stood in the room and watched my brother flatline. And I'm able to recount that story now. And I was able to be the rock in the room when someone would start sobbing and walk up to them and give them a hug and just breathe low and slow. And because I have this tech and I have the awareness that I do, and I dove in and did the hard stuff right out of the gate. On the way home that night, I was driving and I said, "My brother died today," because the best thing we can do is own it. It happened. 2 words. It happened about any situation. And if you can get specific, get specific. And on the way home that one, I was like, ooh, probably shouldn't try and drive while I'm crying. So I waited till I got home. We were coming home to let the dogs out, and then we are going back to my parents' house. And I stood at my kitchen island. I put my hand on the island. I said, "My brother died today." And it almost dropped me the first time. I took a big, deep breath, cried, let myself feel it, because Joseph Campbell said, "Any feeling felt all the way through is bliss." And then I kept saying that phrase, "My brother died today," until I could say it just like that. Not 4 hours after I watched my brother, his body die, his soul was gone hours before that. And because of that, the next day when I watched my uncle get to my parents' house, walk into my parents' family room, make eye contact with my dad, his brother, and just give him a hug, I knew why that crippled me. Because my brother had just died. And I was never again going to receive a hug from him here on this plane. And I went out in my parents' garage and I fucking let it rip for like 20 minutes. And long-winded story, all to say that I'm able to recount this stuff. I'm sitting here, I'm feeling it. I have control of my breath, though, because when you have access to this tech, you can dress the wound before it becomes a scab that you have to pick off.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'm deeply sorry for your loss. My wife and her family, they lost her brother, Walter, to cancer. He had esophageal cancer that was discovered in December of 2021, and he was dead by April of 2022. So it was a whirlwind of emotions, as I'm sure your family experienced. Do they know what the cause of death was?
Mixed opinions on the coroner's report.
Yeah.
Without diving into conjecture and everything, it's jury's still open there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All the same.
Yeah. It was quite random, accidental, if anything. multiple variables at play, and I used I'll say this without I used the phrase "died suddenly"
Right.
consciously. So
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What was your brother like? Were you guys close?
yeah, yeah, he had just moved out from the city to the suburbs. He like early 2021, after 2020 shut down the city of Chicago. And he's like, all the perks of living in the city are gone, and I'm paying more than a mortgage to live in a loft apartment. We would do kickboxing twice a week together. He worked out at my gym. I said a quick recap of my 3.5 minute speech at his celebration of life that Ian was known for his perspective, and he was known for his vision. Even at 27 years old, he was able to be a sounding board for others that were years ahead of him. I was 6 years older than my brother. And, his eyes, his corneas were donated. And with any luck, that man who got his corneas got not only Ian's sight, but also his vision. I would have loved the opportunity to see my brother get into his 30s and see what he's in his 20s. He was grinding, 27, grinding hard, and enjoying his life. And at the same time, it would have been very cool to see what kind of man he was as he rounded the corner at 30. My grandfather said, "Negations acknowledged." I'll quote my grandfather accurately. He said, "Never judge a man before he's 30." And it would have been great to see Ian round that corner. And he lived a hell of a life.
Yeah. Did you share your experience with Enlifted with Ian after you went through that program?
Yes, and Ian, is the bigger brother, and he was in his 20s finding himself. And I shared some of the tools. He was one of my 10 free storywork sessions, and he was like, "Damn, like if you do Caitlin, our sister, like it's gonna be waterworks." and the ironic thing about that, like the projections being what they are, is he was likely feeling more feelings than he wanted to let on. Yeah. My sister actually got into this work late 2020, just a couple months behind me. And Ian was the last holdout of us kids, we'll say. And, the whole spell casting stuff, the words, the stories, things we do. Last tattoo Ian had got was a Grim Reaper. The last song he had sent my dad, and they sent a lot of songs back and forth, was called "Sitting Here Waiting to Die." So, yeah. I don't purport to know what's going on outside of this physical plane, and there are funny little experiences that happen.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting to hear that your sister got into Enlifted as well. Can you talk about how you passed it on to her and what she took from it?
Yeah. So, and she has a book about this. So anybody listening that's like, "Hey, you're talking about your sister's personal stuff," she has a book. It's called "The Moment You're In." She talked about this stuff too. Okay. December 2020, they were on a girls' weekend. My sister, my mom, my wife, my sister-in-law, my sister had been back and forth with alcohol for never oh, I'm drinking during the day, and just when she started drinking, she kept drinking at night until 2 or 3 a.m. and there were emotional outbursts, and finally this one ended with her getting angry and threatening to take her own life, and then spend the night overnight in the police station, and then getting transferred to a mental facility. And you guys want to read the whole story, "The Moment You're In" by Caitlin Micah. And after this, I approached my parents, and I said, "Hey, I'd love to, get Caitlin introduced to storywork." And this was back when you could still get Mark England to do one-on-one sessions. Mm-hmm. And she did a 190-minute session with Mark. And then she met with her nutrition coach at my gym the next day, and the coach texted me and said, your sister's a completely different person. My sister continued doing like 6 sessions with Mark, and then she did level 1 and level 2 of Enlifted, and she is, a lot of people would say she's a completely different person. I would say she has rediscovered herself and who she was when she was younger.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
It sounds like, through the coaching that you do, whether that's with Enlifted or I know you have your personal coaching practice as well, which is based on the Enlifted teachings and foundations. You really make a positive impact on people, and I'm interested to hear what are your perspectives on the impact that you're having in other people's lives through the work you do.
Great question. I love that I have this pendant on right now because thank you. Shout out Spaceman Samson on Instagram with the water shaman, our guy. He was at our retreat. He's all about this tensor technology. And this is a gift from him, as well as this generator on my mic. And the impact. 3 degrees of influence is one that I like to call forward when we talk about impact. And 3 degrees of influence is your habits, your language, your beliefs, your actions, alcoholism, obesity, fitness, healthy living, smoking, drinking, going for daily walks, what TV you watch. It's all contagious to your friends, and back.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the thing. When we couple that with the law of entrainment, and the easiest way to look at the law of entrainment is the way it was discovered in the 1600s in the UK by a physicist whose name I'm going to respect by not pronouncing. Alexander, something with an H is his last name. And he was laid up sick, and he'd been working on his timepieces, and he had 2 grandfather clocks in his bedroom. And he realized whenever he would, put them back together, regardless, they started swinging in sync again at the same rate. They would hit the ends at the same side. And they took this to the Ministry of Science, and they laughed him out of the room. Now, in recent decades, it's been proven that those grandfather clocks were communicating through tiny vibrations sent through their wooden housings, sent and received through their wooden housings. Now, here's the thing. And this is where this ties into the 3 degrees of influence. If you have a shop full of grandfather clocks, a room full of grandfather clocks, they will all fall in sync with the largest grandfather clock in the room. So when we talk about impact to our friends, and being the one that can get to make the positive waves and resist the negative waves coming back, become the biggest fucking grandfather clock in the room. Because then your friends get the impact. And it's not, I ran uphill against this one for ages, trying to, come on, guys, you just need to eat healthy. You just need to think positive. And when I shut up and started embodying it and doing it all for myself and and it sounds new agey, and it literally is vibration, whether it's the heart coherence that Joe Dispenza talks about or something else, letting my vibration, my pendulum become the biggest, most finely tuned, most accurate one in the room, the impact just happens.
Mm-hmm. The quote that comes to mind for me is "Know thyself."
Mm-hmm.
It's so important to understand who we are and what we want to represent, what we value, so that we can project those values and strengths to other people. Be a lighthouse. That's another one that resonates for me. Projecting positivity into a dark world, so other people can see more clearly, literally and figuratively. So I really love that. Also, I'm curious to know the amplifier on the microphone. Can you tell me what that's about?
So tensor technology, I am a novice in, right? It's coiled copper that is cut to sacred cubit lengths and then wound. So my one that I'm wearing has 3 here. I have one that was downstairs, and I left it down there instead of wearing it. It's tall. It's got a spiral on it. This one on the microphone, it's a ball, and it also claps down. You can wear it as a bracelet.
Cool.
This is supposed to be a field generator. And when Samson gave it to me, he said, yeah, you can put it on that microphone. He was here visiting. He's like, yeah, you can put it on that microphone. It'll help harmonize your voice. Like, oh, cool. It's supposed to protect against EMF, and depending on what shape and what pendant you're wearing, it has a bunch of different stuff. This is, in the 90s, they had those copper bracelets that like golfers were wearing for golfer's elbow. Yeah, it's similar tech, just more science that sounds like woo behind it.
And are the two pieces supposed to work in harmony together as well?
Yes. Yeah, a lot of them work in harmony. If you ever meet Samson or get on a video call with him, you'll get the idea that more is better. He's got a few around his neck, a few around his wrist. I think he's got a couple rings of them on. So coiled copper. There's some magic there.
I'll have to look into that.
Heck yeah.
So I know with Dave, you do a couple of different businesses, right? The one he told me about on our podcast last year was about working with like executives and like targeting that specific demographic. Is that correct?
So yeah, that was more Dave and Brooks, and that one's been shelved.
Okay.
Chop Club for Men.
Right.
Yeah. Dave and I specifically, what we're doing these days is retreats, and it's best retreats ever, because after day one of our immersions, and we call them retreats because people are more familiar with that term.
Right. After
day one, people are saying this was more than worth the price of admission. It's like, cool, we still got 2 more days to go. It's a lot of what I explained, the experience at Breckenridge. We take the Enlifted stuff, and Dave and I were both early adopters of the Enlifted method. We are both very well practiced. Dave is coming up on 1,000 storywork sessions. I have over 500 under my belt. I mean, I have, for anyone that peruses my Instagram, I have a giant abracadabra triangle tattoo on my back. I believe in this work. We both live this work, and that's what these are, storywork immersions. In Colorado, Thursday and Friday, we did 2 storywork sessions each day, 2 group sessions, and we have a slogan that went on our shirts for this event, that heal one, heal all. Because when you experience storywork in a group, it is so powerful, and everybody that shared, everybody around the table took something out of everybody else's story and integrated something into themselves for it. So that's a lot of the power.
Yeah, and that speaks to the impact as well, and that ripple effect that you can have, with each person affecting the next person and the next person and so on,
Yeah, 100%. I mean, talk about 3 degrees of influence over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because you get, Dave and I and 6 other individuals, our January event will likely be open to 10 to 15 or more people. Okay, now we have the precipice of 3 degrees of influence for 8 to 10 to 20 people, all rippling out. I mean, do the math there on what 3 degrees turns into from that table.
Yeah, it's massive.
Yeah.
So how did you and Dave meet? Was that through the Enlifted program?
Yeah, it was through Enlifted. When I went through level 1, Dave was grading level 1 peer-to-peer calls. And then we met in January 2021 and it feels like much longer than that we've known each other, at the Enlifted Lake House, at Mark's Lake House in Smith Mountain Lake, Virginia. And we hit it off there. We connected again, I believe, at the next lake house thing. And then we were back at the lake house for a couple of smaller group brainstorming sessions with Enlifted. We helped kick off the Enlifted. Dave and I were a driving force behind the Enlifted podcast. We were co-hosts early on. Now we're on once a month for coaches roundtables. So yeah, we really connected through the Enlifted community, and we have very similar practices and methodologies, and it was a yes brainer to get this spun up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I know you also have your own podcast as well, right?
Yes, sir. The Primal Man podcast. I've been doing that one for, I mean, we are 85 episodes in, I believe, right now, as of this recording. So we're chopping with weekly episodes there. And the Primal Man podcast, essentially, go listen to that. You know, if you go all the way back to the first 6 about who we are, take it. Yes, that stuff still stands, and there's been some adjustments. Yeah, the Primal Man podcast is part of my own personal brand. My program's called the Primal Man Pathway because essentially, when you combine story work and the basics of fitness, it can help men get back to their primal selves.
How do you define that version of your primal self?
That's a phenomenal question, and one that I was hoping you were going to ask today. Because so many people,
yeah, go for it.
Wet my whistle, get ready for this answer here.
Yeah.
So many people, especially thanks to somebody who lied about taking PEDs and used the word primal over and over again, cough, liver king. Yeah, the word primal has been created as this, oh, well, you got to eat liver and get in the sun all day and be barefoot. And guess what, guys? I love sun and I love being barefoot. And I just sent out an email about this week. So this answer is primed. The most primal thing that a man can do is know himself, is shed the bullshit narratives that have been fed to him, the stories from well-meaning teachers and parents who thought that they were doing well, but they were fed a bunch of nonsense too. And accurately and honestly feel his feelings, ask himself where those came from, if those stories where those feelings came from are actually serving him, if those stories are accurate or if they are written by his imposter or his victim mentality, and to pick up the pen and re-author his life, to become the author of his own life. Because when we were truly primal, we didn't have social media. We barely had our parents to tell us who we were because they were out there just surviving and hunting and gathering. Right. We were fending for ourselves and we were figuring out who we were on our own. And that's at the core of it. And I'm a big believer that, does everybody need to be shredded? And like my dad was lifting weights when I was 4 years old. Like fitness is just something I do. And I'm a big believer that movement, daily movement of some sort really helps us get back to ourselves. And knowing who we are and shedding the stories is the first thread to pull on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I know I definitely feel better when I have some sort of daily movement. I have a dog now. We've had a dog for a couple of years. So daily walks are, the norm. That was a big life boost, I think. It definitely helps my long-term wellness as well as my Nick Bear talks about this in his videos. It's lifespan and health span, where your lifespan is the length of time you are alive and health span is the length of time you can live well. So I think I've increased my health span with that. But I try and make lifting weights and going on bike rides, going on runs when it's not too hot outside, a priority as well. And I've also recently started getting into triathlons as the next challenge for me too.
That's super cool. And I mean, daily walks are a cheat code.
Yeah.
The amount of clients that I've worked with, even in the past when I was purely just doing fitness and I want to get lean. Like, cool. When are you moving? Well, for an hour during my workout. Like, that's great. And you sit at a desk all day and then you go home and you watch Netflix. Like, let's go for a half an hour walk each day. And it's, I mean, dude, I was, for myself, when my daughter was born last October, I was 204. The weather was just getting cold. I had a newborn, so my winter walks went way down because it was hard to take her out if it was super cold. I got up to 214, 215. Now that it's warm out, I'm back out. I'm back down to 207. And it's just natural. I've changed very little about my lifestyle. It's just, oh, hey, it's warmer. It's easier to go for walks in Illinois.
Yeah.
And it happens.
So you live in Chicago?
Yeah, I'm about an hour northwest of the city proper. And to say I'm near Chicago is the easiest way for people that are unfamiliar with the area.
Yeah, cool. How do you like it there?
It's where my family is. I enjoy the seasons.
Yeah.
And getting out of Illinois and into a state where there are less restrictions and where things are run a little bit more to my liking would be amazing.
Yeah. Do you have aspirations of moving the family somewhere else?
Yeah, and I'm involved in business acquisition now as well. So there will be the means down the road to, because it's like, oh, well, where do we move? Do we go to Arizona? Well, it's way too hot in the summer. Do we go to Montana? Well, it's -50 in the winter.
Yeah.
So it would be absolutely awesome to, have a home base and then be able to escape during the winter, during the summer. As much as I would love to get in the homesteading thing, I'm leaving that to Dave for now.
Yeah.
I source all regeneratively raised, grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised food, and I'm gonna enjoy some time traveling before I tie myself down with cows and stuff.
Totally. And you have 2 kids now, correct?
I have one kid, and you might just be like looking in the future a couple of years when you say 2.
How has your life changed since she was born from where you were at previously?
Awesome question, because this is something I like to talk about. It's changed a decent amount. Like sleep goes down a little bit, like some, and my wife's breastfeeding, so bless her heart, I'm not up as much as her at night. Workouts, like we hand her off when we're working out. During the day, my mom comes over to babysit a couple days a week, and then I watch her the rest of the week. So one of the biggest ways my life has changed is there's less time for me to really dial in on my personal brand, which really drives more productivity when I do have time. And I'm getting the same amount, if not more, done. It's just maybe less content shows up on social media. That's about it.
Right.
That being said, the big buckets, my relationship with my wife, my relationship with myself, my physical fitness, my mental and spiritual fitness, they're all the same or better. Because when you have that stuff dialed in, well, then you get to walk through busy seasons and big transitions in life and like practice it and live it and integrate it. And this is, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And you are 20 years prior to live in that 20 years ago always and prepare and see the next best opportunity to prepare. And when you live like that and, give myself a little pat on the back and my wife, we lived like that prior to Teddy being born. There's been some shifts and it's been good. It's been fun. I'm loving it.
Yeah. I know the first year is always the hardest. But of course it never gets easier. But it sounds like you have a good foundation in place for, as your daughter gets older and becomes more aware of, who she is as a person and, her place in the world, what she wants to make of it.
Yeah. And, I'm not so negation knowledge. I'm not so naive to think that I'm going to do this all right. And when my daughter comes to me when she's 25, 35, 45, and she says, "Hey, Dad, you could have done this better," I'm going to listen. And if I've yet to fix that about myself, if I've yet to integrate that into who I am, I'm going to make moves. Because talk about health span, right? Mark Sisson, the founder of Primal Kitchen, he just made a 70th birthday post the other day. Dude is shredded. He is still out there chopping, living life. Like, and part of that is that mental and spiritual and self-awareness, know thyself. So if as we get old, we can refrain from, the generations past stereotype of, well, I'm old, so I'm wise, and continue listening to, feed forward. It's gonna be an awesome time.
Hell yeah. So looking at big picture for everything that you do, your family, your business, your storywork practice, what is your why for all of that? What is your why for your life?
Freedom.
What do you mean by that?
So many people can have different connotations to that. And just like, there's a lot of content out there that like happiness starts within. Freedom is an inside job.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a mortgage to pay. I have a kid to feed. I have a wife whose feelings and emotions that I get to care for as well. And guess what? Freedom happens when I am aware that I put myself in all these situations and I choose to operate and live here. And it is a conscious choice every day to wake up with awareness and intention to step into the most powerful version of me. And that's freedom. Because putting yourself in a box feels like, oh man, everybody's trying to keep me down. I hate my life. Why am I so sad? I'm such a waste of space. Like, and I've been there. I've had those thoughts. If you scroll back far enough on my Instagram feed, you can, it's like 3 or 4 months ago, I put a post up about how I used to have suicidal ideations. Used to wake up in the morning and wonder what it would be to suck start a 9mm.
How long ago was that when you were having those thoughts?
When I was 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first time I realized that they weren't normal, as I said in front of a friend or in front of a group of friends. I'm like, well, yeah, I was just wondering what a bullet would taste like. And they're like, everybody kind of stopped. You could hear the record scratch. And like, I don't think you're supposed to say that out loud. Like, this is, the aughts, right? So like people weren't exactly sure how to respond to this kind of stuff. You didn't have TikTok and Instagram therapists telling you how to communicate with your sad friends. I was like, oh, that's not normal.
I know you got to get to a dark place to be able to admit that out loud. And, I've been there. And, I think even though it's a scary thought to have and to share with other people, it takes a lot of courage too, to admit that, and I'm sure, you've thought about that as you've thought about reframing and rewriting your story.
100%, and as with everything, I mentioned the victim mentality, which is an acquired personality trait where an individual tends to regard themselves as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. And that lives inside all of us, including myself, consistently. And I'd be lying if I haven't said that, if I said that I since I was 19, I haven't started to slip down a slope towards those thoughts, right? But I know what I'm doing now, and I know how to course correct. And it's a conscious choice in where we want to point our brain once we have control of it, and that's freedom.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. So what do you do to practice self-care? I know movement, like we talked about, is a big part of your daily practice, and you have a home gym, I think.
Yep.
You don't have your own gym. But what does your daily movement and self-care practice look like?
Ooh. My self-care practice, talk about mindfulness being a thing that you carry throughout the day, as opposed to just in meditation. Self-care is something throughout the day too. I rise and I think about 3 things I'm grateful for, and I verbalize them out loud. And then my wife does hers, and then we speak our daughters into existence because she has yet to learn words. And then, I go downstairs, or depending on when the sun rises, I'll go outside and I'll drink my AM water, watching the sunrise, with my bare feet in the earth. And I'll go downstairs and I'll lift some weights. And then I'll, depend on the day, I either get in some work or I spend my time with Theodora, my daughter. I eat real food. I meal prep on Sunday every week. And I eat real food throughout the day. I connect with my wife when she comes home. I stay aware of my thoughts, feelings, and emotions throughout the day. And then to cap it off at night, I meditate. It's a non-negotiable for me. 10 to 15 minutes on my meditation bill before bed. I don't care how tired I think I am, whether I think I'm good or not. I meditate until I want to meditate for hours on end.
What do you do for your meditation practice? Do you use like a timer? Do you have like a breathwork practice that you do with it? Do you do a guided meditation? What works for you?
I don't use a timer. I have done guided practices. It's how I got into meditation years back, using apps like Calm or Headspace was one. I was mainly using Calm. And I use Insight Timer. I get unguided tracks. And I just press play and I sit on my pillow. The breath changes night to night. Sometimes I'm just purely just sitting. Other times I'm doing low and slow, focused, 4 to 6 second inhale, 4 to 6 second exhale, with some breath holds thrown in at the top or the bottom. And often when I throw the breath in, it's because it's been a long day, or there's something really on my mind. I'm using the breath to jumpstart, to drop me into that space.
Nice. It's a timer as well. It's a great app. It's good for self-guided or guided meditations. You get to pick, whatever works for you. And they have like nice little atmospheric, sounds you could play in the background if that helps you feel more peaceful. Also different cues, like bells or a basu, to bring you in and out of the meditation. I really like it.
Yeah, I love it. There's a lot of gold on there for sure.
Yeah. And I know Calm and Headspace also have a bunch of free content on YouTube as well, if anyone is interested in checking that out. Cool. So talking about nutrition, you say you eat real food. What would you say is your go-to meal that helps you feel your best?
Great question. All of them.
That's the goal, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. I meal prep. My breakfast that I meal prep is pasture raised pork, potato, arugula, shiitake mushroom, bell pepper, and onion. My lunch that I prep is white rice, grass-fed, grass-finished ground beef, broccoli, and carrots. And dinner is, often similar. A meat based around like a regeneratively raised or wild-caught meat. One of my favorite meals right now, though, is wild-caught Faroe Island salmon. And whatever healthy starch and root veggie that we can put with it. It's absolutely delicious. It tastes a little different than regular salmon. It's more fatty because it's deeper in colder water, and it's like fluffy. So, yeah.
When did you start having meals like that for breakfast? That's not too common, amongst most people.
Yeah, for a while there, like when I first opened my gym, breakfast was I would prep like this big old egg and sweet potato casserole.
Yeah.
That's a little more common. You got a whole bunch of eggs. And then it was, when I had time to eat, once I had people coach in the morning and I had moved out my parents' house and had a place to cook every day, there's a couple of over easy eggs and oatmeal and, some fruit, still more general. And then I realized that breakfast foods are a social construct. So I found what works for me. And at the time, eggs were really, really setting off my gut.
Right.
I was still eating grocery store eggs. The only eggs that still to this day, I've yet to go back to any other eggs. And to this day, pasture raised eggs. They're the only ones I really aim to eat. And they're the only ones that really, truly agree with my stomach. So something to be said there.
Cool. So we're looking towards the final questions to wrap up, starting with our mindset moment. What is a quote or phrase or mantra that helps you to stay positive in difficult circumstances?
Best year ever. I love my life. And if I want to do something, I fucking do it.
So let's recap. Best year ever.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
With this business acquisition stuff, there are skeletons in the closet of every business, and something comes up that delays it and this and that. But it's the best year ever. We're buying a business. It's going to be a great vehicle, and we get to improve the lives of everybody at that business. And I get to bring my skills there and continue to look. If you go best year ever, best day ever, as soon as you get out of bed, well, you're going to see all the reasons for it to be the best year ever.
Mm-hmm. So reframing your perspective, telling yourself like this will be the best year ever, or this will be the best day ever, and then making it happen.
Yeah. Or this already is the best year ever.
Right. And then having gratitude for it. Right.
Yeah. When people ask me, "Oh, what's your perfect day?" I'm like, "Well, I know where I'm heading, and because I'm taking actions to head there, I'm living my perfect day right now."
The next one was I love my life.
Yeah. I love my life.
That says it all right there.
Yeah.
Appreciate the life that you have. Make it the best life that you can, right?
Yep. 100%, man. I love my life. And, to take it a step further, if anybody, and Dave loves serving this one up, I love myself.
Yeah, definitely. I've used that many times as well, even when I wasn't feeling it. When I was having a down day, I was feeling depressed, feeling low self-confidence. Like, it helps to tell yourself, like, I love myself. And then you can do it enough until you actually believe it,
100%.
The last one, could you remind me what that one was?
When I want to do something, I fucking do it.
Yeah. Being a business owner yourself, you're accountable to your schedule as well as your clients.
Mm-hmm.
But that is more self-driven. When you're working for someone else, you're accountable to what their expectations are. And sometimes you have to sacrifice what your wants or needs are. That's where a lot of people, myself included, find themselves frequently during the work week, and it's not a fun place to be. So I think that's awesome that, you can tell yourself that and make that happen. And of course, within limits, other people can do that too, Yeah.
And, for me, that's by and large like used for when I want to get something done, when I want to achieve something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like when I set my mind to something, I will do it.
Yeah.
Point blank, end of story.
What are you trying to accomplish now? Like, what's happening in your life that you're looking to achieve?
Retiring my wife.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you have that business deal that you spoke to as well. I'm sure that's on your mind, as well as, plans for your daughter's future as well.
Yep. All of that stuff weaves together, The business acquisition is a vehicle that'll provide predictable income to retire my wife. The plans for my daughter's future get better once my wife is retired and can, homeschool and be home with our daughter. So it all fits together.
Yeah, man. Next is PMA Warrior of the Week. Who is someone who helps you to maintain a positive mindset?
At the end of the day, I'll say this to anyone out there. You can look at Goggins, you can look at Jocko, you can look at, it's you, it's me. It's the voice in our head. And if there's anybody external that helps me, it's my wife.
What's your wife's name?
Sarah.
Props to Sarah. And also props to you, whoever you are that needs to hear that right now. Chase, thank you so much for coming on the show. Where can people connect with you if they want to follow along with you on your journey?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. At Coach_Chase_Tolleson on Instagram is the easiest way to follow along, chasetolleson.com too. And still, if you want to get my emails, you want to hear more of this stuff, sign up for the email list. I will be releasing a couple of new products, new courses, new ways to work with me in the coming months.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, brother.
Take care.
Hey, you too.
Welcome back to part 2 with Chase Tolleson of the Evolve podcast. Chase, thank you. It's so good to see you again after about a year since we last spoke. I know a lot has happened since then. How you doing?
I'm good. I don't appreciate you having me back on to, wow, time flies. And I appreciate you having me back on before we get this thing out into the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to provide a full picture of who you are as a person, everything that you do, everything you have going on currently, not just what we covered in the past. And we talked a lot about the past and like how you got to where you're at today. But now I want to cover more of where you're at currently and what you're doing like with your businesses. So in part 1, we briefly touched on your business that you do as a coach to other businesses and other business owners, such as Lyssa Scott, who represents Maximum Potency. Can you tell me how you work with Lyssa and other clients and the services that you provide to them?
Yeah. So, when we talked in part 1, it sounds like I was on the cusp of, shifting to helping business owners. And it was a relatively organic shift. People came back to me and they said, "Hey, how'd you do this thing?" So 2024 has been refining that process. And I realized, I had this story in my head. I was a coach who ran a gym and I figured out business. So in my cognitive dissonance, my confirmation bias was that, well, people must know how to run businesses. And that wasn't the case, because a lot of coaches they go and they learn how to coach, and then they open up an Instagram profile, and the business acumen is something that's completely foreign to them. And I realized that I had something to offer there. I've been through business coaching courses that I paid $10,000, $12,000 for, and I felt like there was something left to be served. And for a while, that's why I didn't step into business consulting and business coaching. And I realized just the opposite, that it meant that I had an opportunity to improve on the market. So now I help coaches really whittle down their magnetic message and speak to their clients, where a lot of coaches and online service providers are going wrong as they're speaking at their clients. They're talking about what they truly know their thing does, but not what their client thinks they want. And then we make the sales process super silly, simple, and get people comfortable with having those conversations. And next thing you know, they're signing up their first few high ticket clients, or first consistent signups since they became a coach. And we use those signups to build out a product that allows them to scale their time and still make crazy good impact. And next thing you know, they actually have a real business.
Cool. So I know a lot of that involves store work, like we talked about before, and the lifted method that you utilize with creating that story work process for your customers. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So that's everyone that I've worked with one-to-one, we end up working a story. And this is something that I talk to my clients about. Like, I know that story work is the thing that's keeping most people, like the story in their head is the thing that's keeping most coaches from taking that action. And having that tactical result, having the skill set to teach someone, like how to have DM conversations, how to have, sales calls that feel easy and natural, goes right along with that. So once we clear that block, it's like, okay, cool. Now we have a process we can follow to create that action that we've been resisting.
I know also we talked about your business acquisition deal that you had pending at that time. I saw on your LinkedIn page that you've been a partner with Crementum Capital Holdings since August of 2022. Is that related to what we were talking about before?
Yeah, Crementum Capital is our acquisition group, and we are closed on our first acquisition. We've actually taken that first location, stood up leadership teams inside there, implemented business systems, got the business was running all on pen and paper and filing cabinets basically, and we brought it into the 21st century, and we have that first location spinning and humming now, and we're actually opening up we've opened a second location. So
And I checked out their website. Do you deal with HVAC businesses?
yeah, so that's exactly what that company is. What happened is we had put this capital group together, and we put it together early 2022, maybe even 2021. We started on the hunt. No, 2022, and we were thinking we wanted to get into real estate because that's what a few of us knew. And we realized that the market was shifting, and we wanted to get into something more recession resistant. Nothing's truly recession proof. HVAC and plumbing, though, that's recession resistant. People are going to tend to always need that. So we started searching for deals. We found one in northwestern Pennsylvania, and one of my partners was kind enough to move out there and act as CEO until we got a CEO hired and trained up.
Cool. And can you talk more about how you got involved with that business and what you do for them?
Yeah. So how I got involved, and this is something I talk to my clients about, is I just kept following the next opportunity. I didn't know a year before I got into that, I didn't know that I was going to be part of an acquisition group buying HVAC businesses. We can have the best laid plan, and sometimes doors open up that give us opportunities to find the result we want via a different plan. And that's exactly what happened here. Like how it happened is I got podcasting right here. I made a friend. One of our partners is somebody who was a client at my gym and became a good friend. And he was a business consultant, former entrepreneur. So we all clicked. We all started talking. We're like, hey, we have very complementary skill sets. Let's go do something together. So the how is just continue putting one foot in front of the other and actually answer opportunities when they come knocking. What I do is streamline and fine tune communication and leaderships. So I take the story work and the language stuff and my years of building teams inside my gym, and I help the leadership team really lean into their roles, and I'm a conduit for them to better delegate and show up for their people.
How important do you think culture is to creating a successful business?
Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So that's what I do. And my partners as well. And where my specific skill set comes in is pulling simple levers to ensure that the culture is a place where people really, really want to work. I mean, credit to my buddy, my partner, Austin Linney, and our CEO, Ryan Moles. They're boots on the ground. They are the forward-facing culture, right? They have skills to do that too. And that's what my specific skill set is for.
Right. And it starts with the individual, right? Like you creating that precedent, showing them like, what the example you can possibly make for someone and then passing it on. We talked about impact a lot last time.
3 degrees of separation or influence. Yeah.
And how you can pass on that positive example of, how to demonstrate what that culture should look like for that company, whether that's your company or their company, and helping them be that example for the people that they work for,
100%. I likely also talked about grandfather clocks last time. And
right.
If the leader is the biggest grandfather clock in the room, then making sure that our pendulum is swinging correctly, that makes the everything else becomes contagious in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to your business coaching practice and your business acquisition team, you also do coaching along the Primal Man pathway.
Yep.
Which is related to your Primal Man podcast, which we talked about last time, but we didn't really get into the Primal Man pathway. So can you illuminate to us, what is the Primal Man pathway? What is that income streamline for you?
The Primal Man pathway it's what I leaned into when I shut down my gym in January 2022. I went online and it's also the reason that a few of my guys started coming back around and saying, "Hey, how'd you build this thing?" Like I went through and I fell in love with this kind of stuff. So I went and I got, my 023, or I got my Enlifted level 1. And now I want to build a coaching business too. How'd you do it? And the Primal Man pathway, what it was, and I say was because it's, if somebody comes to me and they're like, they know me, and then I'll still take them on. And by and large, it's been shelved. The business consulting, business coaching is taking up more and more time. And one thing that really successful people know how to do is say no, so that they can say yes to other things.
Right.
So that's something I'm practicing. So what it was, though, is it's the Enlifted method, story work, combined with my years of lifestyle and fitness. And it was fitness on the front end. It was a fitness and lifestyle program. And 9 times out of 10, when I would get guys on their first one-on-one call with me and start diving into the nitty-gritty and the stories about their fitness, I would get statements like, "Oh man, this is so much more than I thought it was going to be." And they get done with 12 weeks and I get a message a year later, "Hey, 37 was the best year of my life because of what we did together for 3 months." So it was, it's lifestyle, it's fitness, and it's also the simple actionable tools to continually move forward in life.
Okay. And so you don't offer those services consistently, but you do have some clients right now.
Yeah, I have 2 people that fall into that bucket right now. And that's one of those that I take people on for that one that have a past history with me. Otherwise, I have a whole plethora of guys that went through my program, coaches who I'm helping build their business, people who I trust, who I can refer to, who are actively focusing on that stuff right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And I'm sure that is just another example of your impact in that space. How you've helped them through that story work, and now they can build their business, and you can take that next step in your career as well with, helping to go where you feel like you're making the most impact, which is, working with these business owners individually on more of that, strategy, branding, consulting side of things. Yeah.
Exactly.
And how does that relate to the Primal Man podcast? Has that been tabled as well?
That's been tabled for a rebrand. What we'll call it moving forward, I'm still working on, and we're currently storyboarding what the first few episodes will look like for the next season, the shift, and making sure that the podcast is a resource for individuals who want to grow their business, who want to, online business, yeah, sure, and just entrepreneurial journey in general. I've been running my own business. I got out of the Navy in 2014, opened my own gym, and I jumped out of the plane and built the parachute on the way down. And the podcast will be a way for people to build their parachute before they jump out of the plane.
Love that. Sounds great. You're definitely heading in the right direction. Speaking of rebranding, I wanted to talk about the recent rebrand that you've started to implement with the help from Lyssa Scott, Maximum Potency, who we mentioned earlier, one of your clients. In April, Lyssa and you launched your updated branding design packet on your Instagram. And I assume that means you will be relaunching your website. I went to chasetolleson.com and there was nothing there. So can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, the website looked like a gym or fitness brand. and it spoke to that. It had pictures of me with my shirt off and talked about all the things that guys who came into my program wanted.
Right.
And to keep everything cohesive, I've pulled that down while I'm working on the next iteration. The next website will have my content funnel, my $25,000 content funnel on there. I gave this framework to my buddy Pat Smith, and he attributes $25,000 worth of revenue in 2 months to the fact that he used the framework in the training. So that'll be front and center on my website.
Love that. Do you have an idea on when that might launch?
Before the end of June. We're aiming for like mid-June.
Cool.
I owe Lyssa 1 or 2 videos for that, and then it'll be done.
Cool. Well, I think that will be up most likely before this episode comes out. But also, I saw on your Instagram that you want everyone to win. What do you mean by that?
Oh, I want everyone to win. Like whether you work with me or not, I want you to get what you want in life and in business and in life. And if I can, perfect example, is Pat took one of my free resources and made $25,000. I'm giving enough away for free that if people want to piece it together, they can go and they can make a whole lot of money. They can clear their mindset. They can live a damn good life. If they want to collapse that timeline even further, then they can sign up and get it all packaged up and me as a guide. And regardless of what happens or who signs up with me, I want to see everybody get to where they want to go.
Definitely. What is the offer oasis? I know that's something you have going on with Lyssa. It's sort of ongoing. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so that's something. The first official call is in a couple hours, actually. We're helping people build out an offer that sells. And, oftentimes, if our business is floundering, we can, and our sales skills are dialed in and we know how to have conversations, we go back to our offer. Because if people want what we have, we're going to have a business that runs well. And the key is to have an offer so good they feel silly saying no. And then on top of that, it's building out a whole offer suite, making it accessible at different levels of investment, different levels of trust, and keeping customers and being able to serve them longer so they stay around longer, because the easiest customer to get is somebody who already has your trust, or somebody whose trust you already have.
Cool. And where are you at now with Enlifted? I saw online that you were at Enlifted level 3, which I believe is the highest level you can go. Is that accurate?
Yeah. So I level 3, I co-hosted the podcast for a while. They took it was, when you have multiple hosts and multiple locations, it can be difficult. So, my time started getting more and more rare as I had a daughter and stood up more businesses. So I still, like, when I'm in person, there's an episode in the queue that Kim and I recorded recently. When I'm in person, we still jump on the mics. And as far as Enlifted, I am one of their biggest supporters. I am a Fred, and I'm one of the 30 or 40 level 3 coaches out there.
Amazing. And congratulations on that achievement.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up on something we talked about last time. How's your progress going on retiring your wife?
It's let's back up a second. The retiring my wife journey, the timeline that she wants now is we are planning on a second kid, and she sees herself getting, her manager told her they get their bonus next year. She gets 4 months full pay maternity leave. So she sees herself riding through that and then making a call there. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. Congratulations on the new kid. Hopefully that's in the works. That's something we touched on as well last time about being a possibility. So that's cool to know that you guys are heading in that direction as well. How do you feel about, getting another child in your family?
It'll be another paradigm shift.
Yeah.
One was a paradigm shift. Two will be another paradigm shift. And my aunt put it really well. She's like, when you're in the early days and you're thinking about how many kids to have, so many people think about the work on the first few years, and instead flip it around and think about how many people do you want around your table when you're a grandparent?
Yeah. Or, to put it maybe a bit more morbidly, but it depends on how you look at it, like around your deathbed.
Yeah. 100%.
And that's another example of impact, I think, when you can see the manifestation of the people that you brought into your inner circle, into your family, and, having the awareness of what they're going to do. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, for me, talk about impact. My job as a father, as far as I'm concerned, is to create a human being that is better than me on every level. My job is done then. So the quicker that she surpasses me, the quicker she can climb from there.
Yeah. And how is your daughter doing now? She's about almost 2 years old.
Yeah, 2 years old in October, and she is doing amazing. She's telling stories, putting 3 and 4 words together at a time. It's great.
Happy to hear that, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great talking to you, getting to know you better. And do you have any retreats coming up with Dave or anything else you want to plug?
No retreats this year. I have a lot of personal and other business travel, so we hit pause on that. I will say this. One of my clients, Becky, she talks about openly that she dipped into a retirement account to move her business forward by working with me. And I don't care if it's with me. It's so many coaches will preach the value of a coach, the value of a coach, the value of a coach, and then go into scarcity mode when they talk about when it comes to investing in their business. Well, I don't have that money. It's like, well, we can, and I've seen it too many times now, which is why I want to lay this point home. A coach goes, I don't have the money to invest. And then 3 months later, it's like, oh, I'm in a worse position. I'm actually picking up a side job and I can't focus on my coaching as much anymore. And it's, do you not have the money, or do you not believe in yourself enough? Because if you believe, for any coaches listening to this, if you believe that you can create impact, then all it takes is learning a few simple skills and putting one foot in front of the other. And it's a real possibility. So if you as a coach truly believe in the value of a guide, as yourself as a guide to take people through the abyss and into their own version of the hero's journey, then practice what you preach and find yourself a guide. If you want to be me, cool, let's talk. Find somebody who you resonate with and let them help you collapse the timeline between where you are and where you want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a great place to end it. Thank you, Chase, so much. Have a great day and be well.
Thank you, brother.
Thanks for watching Evolved Podcast. Follow at evolvedpodcast.co on Instagram for weekly updates. Subscribe to Evolved Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and like your favorite episodes. Production and editing by Joe Fitzpatrick. Our theme music, Endless Cruise, is written and performed by Fingers, spelled F1NG3RS.